"He's sleeping," my daughter slurred, reeking of Vegas. But it was a lie. I found my grandson bruised in my trunk. What she did next is unforgivable. It was a typical Saturday afternoon, and I was puttering around in my garden as I always did. The early summer warmth was already settling over Boston in June. I took little gulps of chilled lemonade from Whole Foods while I was pulling weeds. Gardening had become my comfort, ever since my husband George passed away from a heart attack 3 years prior. "Ellen, your hydrangeas are absolutely breathtaking," Mrs. Jones called out from across the white picket fence. We'd been friendly neighbors for over 3 decades in this fancy Newton area, enjoying backyard barbecues on the weekends and Thanksgiving dinners. "Thanks, yes they are. The colors are so much richer than last year, don't you think? Perhaps it's because of the soil that George took such good care of." I straightened up and gave a small wave to Mrs. Jones. "Even though I'm 63, I'm still employed, I still have to work. I'm a human resources manager at Stop and Shop. Having over 3 decades of experience, I've gained the confidence of my team, and my job is very gratifying. But more than anything, my greatest happiness was spending weekends with my precious grandson, Lucas. Every Saturday, he would sleep over at my home. On Sunday mornings, we would make pancakes together, absolutely covering them in maple syrup. It was a tradition that we both cherished. But then, the changes began in the middle of May, that very day. Lucas, who would look forward to our weekend walks around Crystal Lake, suddenly became distant. He started avoiding any activity outside and kept saying he wanted to live at Grandma's house. He'd always been such a smart little boy, exceeding at math in preschool and showing a great deal of intellectual curiosity. Even though it was June, he kept wanting to wear long sleeves, and he started avoiding those weekend sleepovers we used to have. My daughter, Amy, is 34 years old. Before she got married, we were incredibly close. We used to spend weekends browsing stores at the mall, and we'd talk for ages over coffee at Starbucks. But then she began purchasing expensive designer bags in quick succession, always telling me, "The salon is booming." Chanel, Gucci, the whole 9 yards. Even though her nail salon, Shine and Glow, had a fantastic spot near Newton Center Station, I had heard grumblings that her customer count was dropping. There were even hints that the staff wasn't getting paid on time. Amy's husband, Michael, is 36. He suddenly left his job as an accountant at a big company after 8 years, and now he's working as a temporary employee. It was so out of character for him, given how careful and kind he is. He used to be really focused on family, always bringing Lucas to the park on weekends, but that stopped recently, too. He seemed worn down, and the couple seemed to be communicating less. One day I found some bruises on Lucas's arms, and my heart just stopped. She told me he fell down the steps, but Lucas's eyes were filled with fear. When I wanted to take him to Beit Israel Deaconess Medical Center, Amy absolutely wouldn't allow it. The weekly visits suddenly started getting canceled. 2 employees left the salon, and its hours became all over the place. Amy said it was for business improvements, and she spoke excitedly about getting new equipment, but her words just didn't ring true. Lately, we hadn't encountered Amy's relatives at our church group close to Boston College. Our family meals on weekends had become less common, and she didn't call me as often. Something was definitely amiss. My daughter's expensive outfits, and my son-in-law's tired demeanor, and my grandson's terrified gaze, I wasn't quite able to figure out what that underlying problem was. That was a Saturday. The day that would irrevocably transform my existence, our family's existence, was drawing closer, unseen but inevitable. Saturday, June 10th. That day I was also deeply involved in my garden. The fragrance of fresh lavender I had just planted drifted on the gentle summer air. The heavens were a pure, vibrant blue. It should have been just right. That should have been the ideal kickoff to the weekend. The initial thing I heard was a soft noise coming from the garage. I assumed it was just a stray cat. We'd been spotting quite a few orange strays in the area recently. Mrs. Jones seemed to have been providing them food. However, the following sound was undeniably human. It was coming from the trunk of my Lexus RX 350. That was peculiar. I removed my gardening gloves and went towards the garage. I was positive I had removed all the shopping bags I'd placed inside the trunk yesterday. As I got closer, the noise became clearer. It was like subdued crying. And then a voice I knew. "Grandma." My fingers shook. I retrieved my car keys and struggled to open the trunk. Before my eyes, blurry with anxiety and rising temperature, I missed repeatedly before I was finally able to push the button. Trunk sprang open with a click. It was Lucas. I was yelling. My 5-year-old grandson was huddled up, trembling inside the cramped trunk. Despite the poor lighting, his bruises were plainly noticeable. They were on his face, arms, and legs. His long-sleeved shirt was completely drenched with sweat, and it was obvious that he had wet his pants. "Grandma, help me," he whispered. That choked me up. "It's all right, Lucas. You're safe now." When I picked him up, his body felt like it was on fire. He had to have been in that trunk for ages. He needed to be unscared. He had to be de-angry hurt. He needed fluids. Without hesitation, I carried him inside. I settled him down on the sofa in the air-conditioned living room and began wiping him down with cold towels. I carefully gave him water, letting him sip it slowly. "Amy, answer the phone." I tried calling my daughter on her cell, but it went right to voicemail. I tried Michael's number, but got no answer. Eventually, amidst a mix of worry and fury, the phone rang. "Mom," Amy's voice. "I'm tied up right now." I could hear familiar noises in the background, the electronic beeps of slot machines, excited yelling, the sound of coins. "Amy, where's Lucas?" I asked. He's at home, sleeping." It was a blatant lie. Her speech was slurred, probably from drinking. "I'm on a winning streak, up 50,000 already." I heard Michael's voice in the background saying, "Amy, let's go home. Don't interfere." I could hear them arguing through the phone, then the call just abruptly ended. My hands were shaking as I double-checked the number. It was area code 702, Las Vegas. Suddenly, Lucas began coughing. My son's temperature was climbing rapidly. I didn't have a moment to lose. I thought about calling for an ambulance, but I figured getting him there myself would be quicker. "Lucas, we're going to the hospital," I said. He gave a little nod of agreement. When I picked him up, I could feel his little body shaking. Was it because he was scared, running a fever, or a combination of both? The trip to Beit Israel Deaconess Medical Center. What usually took only a quarter of an hour felt like forever that day. I looked at Lucas in the rearview mirror at every red light. His forehead was covered in a cold sweat. "We're almost there, buddy, just hold on," I told him. As I said those words, I clutched the steering wheel almost as if I were praying. Inside, I kept wondering, why was this happening? What in the world was happening to my beloved family? At Beit Israel Deaconess Medical Center's children's emergency room, Dr. Thompson looked at all of Lucas's bruises. A nurse, a silent nurse, quietly took pictures. They were taking pictures of the evidence. "Mrs. Baker, let me explain your grandson's condition," the doctor said. In the examining room, Dr. Thompson's face looked serious. There were several bruises, some were fresh, some were over a week old. He wasn't getting proper nutrition. And there were also clear signs that he was dehydrated. The doctor picked his words very carefully before continuing. This was clearly a case of abuse. "We're required by law to report this," he said. Hearing those words made it all official. "We've already notified Child Protective Services and the Boston Police," he stated. "Your grandson will be safe here until they get here." Shortly after, Detective Sarah Martinez came in. I approached Lucas carefully, keeping a professional but friendly demeanor. "Hi, Lucas," I said. "There's nothing to be afraid of. You haven't done anything bad." Lucas didn't say a word at first. However, after he was holding the teddy bear Detective Martinez gave him, he slowly began speaking. "My mom said we didn't have any money," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "My dad's job didn't pay enough." He continued in a shaky voice. "She said we could get money in Las Vegas. But Dad didn't want to go." Then I could hear his mother's angry words. Suddenly, we heard a lot of noise in the hallway. "That's my son, where is he?" It was Amy's voice, loud and frantic. The air was thick with the smell of liquor. "Ma'am, please calm down." I could hear hospital security trying to calm her down. Then Michael's weary voice, "Amy, just stop it." Detective Martinez got up from her chair and walked out of the room. I kept Lucas close. His little body was shaking with fear. "It's okay," I reassured him. "Grandma will keep you safe." The argument in the hallway continued for a long while. Eventually, Amy's yelling started to fade away. It seemed like security must have taken her somewhere else. Later that night, I had a lengthy conversation with Detective Martinez. We talked about everything that we'd gathered from the security footage, the statements from neighbors, and Lucas's story. Everything led to an awful revelation. The next morning, there was a reporter from the Boston Globe at the hospital. I knew that headlines such as "Child Abuse in Upscale Neighborhood" would be on the news soon. But there were more disturbing facts about to come to light. Michael's documents were submitted to the police. I glanced at the papers, which showed the poor financial state of Amy's nail salon. They disclosed a mountain of debt that was difficult to even imagine. That amounted to a staggering $1.5 million. Money that customers had deposited was being misused. There were also unpaid salaries piling up. All of this stemmed from one destructive compulsion, a gambling addiction. My daughter had put her son in a car's trunk and gambled away significant amounts of money in casinos in Las Vegas. How long would it take before I could fully accept this as the truth? But at that moment, I needed to be resilient for Lucas, who was sound asleep right in front of me. Outside, the sound of ambulance sirens was blaring, almost signaling the beginning of a fresh day. In Detective Martinez's office, Michael began to relate the entire story. Hidden behind his exhausted demeanor, the truth gradually began to emerge. It all began in the previous September. At that point, Amy's nail salon, called Shine and Glow, appeared to be thriving. It was located in a premium spot near Newton Center Station. She had a growing number of followers on Instagram and had a consistent stream of new clients. But that was just the facade. Business had been slowing down little by little due to new competition. Employee turnover was on the rise. Amy continued to make pricey investments in equipment. To maintain the illusion of success, she was refused loans from banks and resorted to loan sharks. The whole situation initially started with $50,000. We thought we could find a way to pay it back, but stuck in a vicious cycle of exorbitant interest payments, they became trapped in a new debt cycle. Amy was getting increasingly consumed by online gambling. One big win would have allowed us to pay it all back. That lure completely took over. Problems were found in the company's accounting department. Michael had stolen money from the company in order to pay off Amy's debts. After this was discovered, he was let go. I had lost my job as an accountant after 8 years. However, Amy didn't alter her ways. In fact, things just got exponentially worse. Salon income vanished almost instantly into online gambling sites, customer deposits, payroll, everything. The total debt climbed to $1.5 million. That trip to Las Vegas, it was a job interview. Michael's voice cracked when he spoke about it. I was trying for a position as a casino dealer, a solid salary of $80,000 a year. I was trying to find a way to get our lives back on track. Amy unexpectedly joined me. While I was at the interview, Amy gambled and lost a substantial sum at the casino. Then came those awful phone calls from loan sharks. Trapped, she started taking her anger out on Lucas, my sweet, innocent son. Michael put his hands over his face. His body started trembling. Just at that moment, Detective Martinez's phone started ringing. She answered it and spoke quickly a few times. Then she turned and looked at us. Amy was starting to tell them everything. The security cameras recorded every single thing that occurred. On a Saturday morning, very early, Amy placed sleeping Lucas in her car and drove him to my place. After checking to see if I had started gardening for the day, she put Lucas into the trunk and transferred him to my car. He was just in the way, so I thought I could have you watch him for a bit. Amy's statement during the police interrogation. Even though she was drunk, a mother's words left the officers in a state of shock. The investigation uncovered even more terrible details. Amy had started running an illegal prostitution ring in the salon to pay for her gambling habit. Several young women had been abused and victimized. The loan sharks were associated with organized crime. Michael's statement went on. Amy had tried to use Lucas's custody as leverage to secure additional loans. There was even a chance of human trafficking. Detective Martinez stated this calmly while she was sorting through the documents on her desk. This case is no longer just about child abuse. It might evolve into a full-blown organized crime investigation. The FBI would be becoming involved in the investigation. I saw the bright flashes of cameras from reporters outside the window. This sad situation that happened in Boston's affluent neighborhood was instantly all over the news. I pictured Lucas sound asleep at the hospital. How could so much hardship have befallen his little body? Ma'am, Michael took my hand. My son, Lucas, please, even if only temporarily. I gave a firm nod in agreement. Right now, keeping Lucas safe was what mattered most. We needed to help him heal from the emotional damage, even if it took a while. Detective Martinez gave a soft smile. Lucas is lucky to have such an incredible grandmother. Evening was starting to fall outside. I was thinking about our new life that would be starting the next day. I still couldn't bring myself to forgive my daughter. However, I knew I had to be strong for my grandson's sake. The twilight of that Massachusetts summer was exceptionally pretty. Half a year later, it was December. A little Christmas tree was twinkling in my living room. The aroma of cinnamon, which I had purchased the day before from Whole Foods, made the room feel cozy. Grandma, I believe this star should be moved up higher. Lucas was pointing at the star at the top of the tree. His voice no longer sounded afraid like it had before. Those 3 therapy sessions each week with the child psychologist at Beit Israel Deaconess Medical Center, coupled with a consistent lifestyle, were slowly starting to mend him. You know what? We should ask Dad when he gets back. Perhaps we could have some hot chocolate before he gets here. As I made the hot chocolate in the kitchen, I thought about how much had changed since that awful day. Michael is now employed at the Bellagio in Las Vegas. Because of his impressive skills at the tables, they even have him teaching new employees. His dedication to his work has already gotten him a promotion. He has video calls with his son every weekend and comes home to Boston once a month. He managed to get a 10-day Christmas holiday. The debt repayment schedule is coming along nicely, thanks to some help from a very skilled lawyer at Boston Legal. The loan shark debts were eliminated due to the FBI investigation. The illegal loan agreements were considered to be legally invalid. Payments for the salon clients as a result of the FBI investigation was set up through insurance and asset sales. Dad is flying in today. Yes, he said he would be here around 6. Did you get all your homework done? Lucas nodded with a huge smile. His grades at Newton Elementary School are getting better, and he has made new friends. He's doing especially well in math and is near the top of his class. His teacher, Mrs. Brown, complimented his extraordinary strength and intellectual curiosity. Just half a year after the event that was on the front page of the Boston Globe. I'm watching Amy go through rehab over at the Massachusetts State Addiction Treatment Center. She was handed a 7-year prison term for child abuse and stealing, although if she behaves, she could possibly get out on parole in 4. I still really don't want to see my mom, Lucas murmured quietly as he sipped his hot chocolate. I can understand that. It makes sense. It's going to require much longer for his emotional hurts to get better. His counselor, Jennifer, also suggests that we not push him and let him move at his own speed. However, in his latest therapy session, Lucas actually cried for the first time as he talked about his mother. It wasn't tears of rage or terror, but of deep sadness. Why did Mom change? That specific question just gripped my own heart. Nevertheless, it might be the start of things getting better. Close to Newton Center Station, where the hair salon was, there's now a little coffee shop. It's a hit with tons of commuters lining up every morning. The people living nearby just go about their routines like nothing's amiss. But over the past 6 months, our family has transformed significantly. The federal court criminal trial completely exposed the full scope of the loan shark operation. From Boston to Vegas, there were over 200 cases of victims. Unlawful, extremely high interest rates, threats, and straight-up violence were all involved. Amy was another one of those victims. She fell into a gambling addiction, was caught by these loan sharks, and ultimately endangered her child. Both a victim and also a perpetrator, how can a mother reconcile these feelings? The emotions I have are extremely tangled. "Grandma, it's snowing," my granddaughter announced. Outside the window, the first snowfall of the season had begun to come down on Boston. The world outside was coated in pristine white, a dusting of snow. Very shortly, Crystal Lake would be frozen solid, ready for skating. This year, I'd be going skating with Dad. I could see the excitement in Lucas's eyes. Suddenly, the doorbell sounded. "It's Dad." Lucas raced to the door. Michael came inside with a huge grin. He looked like a new man in his suit, no longer looking so worn out. I felt tears prick my eyes as I watched father and son hug. "I'm home, Mom, and Merry Christmas." Michael reached out and held a big paper bag. In it were chocolates from a renowned Las Vegas chocolatier. "Welcome back. Having you back is the most wonderful gift." I gave a little smile. Humans mess up sometimes. However, we also have the capacity to begin again. Maybe there is no such thing as an ideal family. Even so, we always keep going. The snow continued to fall without making a sound. Crystal Lake's surface, reflecting the streetlights, gave off a beautiful, almost surreal light. Once we're done with this tough winter, spring will return. When that time arrives, undoubtedly fresh flowers will grow in my garden. Additionally, in our lives too, a fresh start will be here.